All right, here we go again. So what they believe is that a person that comes into the country under an asylum claim or whatever it is that the Biden administration or whatever administration let him forward in, it's a conditional entrance. It's not an open-ended entrance. Right. The process has an end date. Right. Great. So it's unfortunate that it goes the way it goes at times. But there's no guaranteed entry or continual entry. It doesn't mean that you broke the law. It means that the process is over. Well, Biden made a lot of promises that he can't keep because he never got reelected. Now, you should understand a lot of people didn't reelect that administration. Correct. That are now sad about it. Or at least Kamala Harris. Now, I was there. I realized that people told you all that you were making the wrong choice for your own good. Right. Right. Thank you, Larry. Although she would have definitely deported more than Biden and probably not allowed all those people in because it was making a mess. And it was taking away from other programs. She was concerned. She was a social democrat, but she was concerned that the money was going to the wrong locations, right? Which it essentially is why they lose their support. It happened to Obama. It was a repeat of 2016. Great. Right. Well, you have to balance that economy with the fact that, you know, other people need jobs too, and they need to make some money to support their family. Right. And in fact, some people, they just work to cover the fact that they're part of a narcotics or human smuggling ring. And it's kind of like laundering your time so that they don't overly focus on you. Correct. Somebody's calling on one of my phones there. At least I think they are. Bing. Oh, it's my brother. Well, I think it is at least. Well, nobody said that we're not going to deport people involved in an amnesty or whatever it is process. Because some of it really wasn't amnesty if you look at it, even if maybe carried under the amnesty program. Right. Well, you know, she's all concerned because somebody, you know, he did what he was supposed to. And that's part of why Americans are angry, because they're not getting anything in life. They're not part of a clique that lets them in. So the more of the Latino clique that grows, the less likely that we're going to have a good life. Because you're taking people that are non-citizens that just came here on some whatever, and some are illegally here. They didn't go through the one app or anything like that. I found, again, so you have to be intelligent about it. The one app is a smart app if you're going to do that type of thing. But you have to run it logically and with reason. You can't just let everybody just bum rush the border with it, right? You know, a bum rushing the border and breaking in, and bum rushing the border via that app where you schedule, sun up to sundown appointments, could be considered almost the same thing. No, you had choices years ago in my life, and I'm sure there's other people. You decided as undocumented immigrants to destroy my life for criminal bosses, whether it be government or not. There's a price to pay for that. The deep state. They built their own deep state. Correct. So the LA operation, the money laundering operation, might have been a deep state thing. Well, what they'll do is they'll donate, so they won't get busted. They money launder into donations to politicians, also. So you just got to be careful of all that. I walked into Ross after they hit me quite a few times, and I was acting like I was on my phone, and they knew some knew I was talking to them. I said, "You got to be careful of that nonsense. If you keep doing it, it'll come back on you." Right. Racketeering is what everything that's coming against me was racketeering and is racketeering. It's just been laundered, so through several groups of people, so it looks like it's some investigation that doesn't even look like an investigation, right? Thank you, lady. We have some delicious ramen, I'll tell you that. 75 milligrams of sodium, that's perfect. I mean, why have that much sodium? Like what is it? It was like 400 or something milligrams in noodles. And bread and noodles. Notorious for too much sodium. Again, you got to get, 360 milligrams in a serving. That's less than this serving was 75 milligrams. Much smaller, less filling. Right. They're actually both organic. Pricing similar. Of course, the one that I ordered from Amazon is probably more expensive. You got to get delivery costs. The other one was Walmart. So what they're saying now, one of the talking points is that they did nothing wrong because they're engaged in a process. Right. Well, the Biden administration let you all believe something false. Right. Even under the Biden administration, removal orders were being created. They just weren't being served. Which means you were being set up, all of you. Right. Well, they get big donations from those things, right? If they steer the money to certain communities. I was doing Molotov cocktails. Right. Well, we constantly have to evaluate and assess the military helping us and what they're doing, what their equipment is, what their knowledge is, what their options are with contingencies. What are the contingency plans? What if it goes bad? You got an loaded AR in your hand. Is there something else you can do instead of just pop around into somebody? Right. So again, the longer this goes, the crazier their mindset. Well, the more desperate they'll become. Right. Right. I see. What was that vehicle? No, it just looks like the military vehicle. I guess there's a new class of armored vehicles coming out, or semi-armored, or whatever it is. Right. Look like they have the right kind of chassis, like the off-roader chassis, instead of just some government contracted chassis, and has some technology in it as far as off-road technology. All right, so we have a U.S. citizen that's claiming something. So you can't just say blah, on that. We're doing the best we can. You have to focus on that and figure out how to, dial it in better. Right. Now, she says she was pushed and she fell and she was a U.S. citizen. Now, the question is, what was she doing there? I don't know if she fought or anything like that. Because again, just being a U.S. citizen doesn't mean that you haven't laid hands on an officer or something, right? What was she doing now? She was down by the fence? All right. Okay, she did something. She said agents detained her on allegations of obstructing the arrest of her undocumented partner. Arrested because she... Oh, it's not the fence. I thought it was the fence. Or the wall. Okay, so she was fighting. Yeah, see, there it is. She was fighting the agents off so they couldn't get to her, I guess, undocumented partner. I'm not against immigration. I'm not against helping people in life, but what they did in the Biden administration created a monster that can't exist, right? Especially if they decrease, and it was unsustainable. We got people here that need money, right? Thank you, Larry. Hell, if you hadn't been if undocumented immigrants hadn't been part of it, right? I'd have lived a better life, and I wouldn't need the money that I need to stay healthy, because I would, been stayed in massage and all of that, and it would have worked for me, right? Thanks, Suey. Agreed. Or even stayed in Planet Fitness and all that. So again, you probably should have stopped 10, 15 years ago. Satan played you 10, 15 years ago, rewarding you for harming me, and now you're getting deported and you're all upset. Right. I'm a big person. I carry a lot of status in this country. I just can't get anywhere because everybody's corrupt. They take from Satan, they take from crooks, and call it law enforcement and everything else. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, I would investigate the person that delivered that package. And if they're an immigrant, then I'd double investigate. Right. They'll make sure they're not altering deliveries and messing with deliveries just based upon some sort of, we don't want you to, help the government type thing. Yeah, I don't know what happened. They ordered the wrong color hearing aid. Doesn't make any sense to me. Right. I'm sorry. Oh, they're telling me to call out. All right. No, I know what was going on. I told you for years that they were part of it. Correct. That's why I said make sure they're legitimately working and they're part of something legitimate. Correct.
We are not pawns for Donald Trump's agenda. Why now? It's because the military was called upon innocent protesters. We, in our oath to serve, we serve the people of the United States. The Constitution, these constitutional rights being stripped and just denied, and the military will not be pawns to that. So I'm calling upon the conscience of military members who served previously and now. We have a conscience of mind, and we have a duty and moral obligation to say no and resist evil. We are not pawns for Donald Trump's agenda. Why now? It's because the military was called.
Well, there's some. I don't even know if she's active duty military. She could be, out, for her done her enlistment and put the uniform on. But it's kind of dangerous for her to say that. I mean, she could be put out of the military for it, right? She's telling people not to follow the orders, right? She may not even be military, right? And she's obviously Latino. But, the riots are going on. Correct. Well, yeah, being a undocumented immigrant is, again, there's a process, and that process was bloated by the prior administration because they didn't do what I told them to do. Right. You get everybody to work or they don't stay, and that's it. Right. I mean, if they're disabled or something, we can make, arrangements and waivers for that type of thing. Again, I'm usually right. Why? Because I listen to God. God tells me what to do. That's also why I'm not being judged. Because if I didn't say anything, my life would be better. But again, then I'd be denying God. And who am I to deny God, as Peter says? Right. Thank you, Lord. Now, they got Greta, I think Greta means well. I mean, her heart probably believes everything she's doing.
Obviously, in a very dehumanizing way.
She's never been in government or anything like that. She doesn't understand everything. But continue to work at improving, providing sustenance for the Gazan people. You have to replace Hamas with another system that cares for them. Otherwise, they'll never figure it out. Correct, Larry. And you see how Hamas is constantly coming at the system that's attempting to feed them. Agreed, Larry. We agree, Larry. Well, because that's the real danger. It's like anybody that commits a crime could get detained. So this pregnant woman, she's blocking, impeding, and it's really considered an assault. It's hard to charge. That's why they don't use it, because it's called assault on a federal officer if you impede a federal officer, actually. Like resisting with violence always doesn't necessarily take a certain level of violence that you would think. Right? Thank you, Larry. So she got detained even though she's pregnant. I mean, if you're pregnant, you shouldn't be fighting officers, right? So really, if we look at who's deployed, and you look at some of the films of what's going on, the least aggressive are the military. So this idea where the military is bumping it up another level really doesn't exist. Right? You watch LAPD, you watch some of the ICE guys, they're a lot more aggressive in what they're doing. But again, I think ICE strategy is just disengage when they can disengage. Right? What it appears to be. Like, it was just smart. Right? And at least the first day or couple days, she looks like she was possibly backing the riots, the Mexican president, but at this point she says not to do that, so that's good. Because they could be confused as to what was being said. I would hope that you contacted some judges on this, former big judges, right, if you can, or somebody. I don't know. I don't. Can you ask? Can you call a judge's chambers and ask the judge to enter a preliminary, like finding, like, are we okay as far as you understand the law? Right. So you get some guidance from the judges. Because I think you're okay, but. God bless you, Larry. Yeah, I have to get out of here and get over to the gym in a little bit. It just feels like I'm here for something, and I'm not. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. Instructors tell us that Marines have not completed their standing rules for the use of force and non-lethal weapons training. I do not have an estimate of when they will be employed. Task Force 51. Okay, so they are doing some training. Now, I would suggest, again, pepper spray. I don't know if they have that or not. And again, there are rising costs, so okay. So, well, you know, change like that costs money. So Elon's not really a government person, so he doesn't understand how it works. Right? You're not just going to walk in and change things. Right? They're going to bog you down. It's going to cost money. So again, with Elon, he was, I think, focusing on too much. And he lost focus on, like, I just got on X today, and his personage. When you have a lot of money, you can also be big. I'm big in spirit. He's big in personage with money and status and all that. So when I used to get on X, he would pop up as a help at times. Maybe it was something I could think of anyway, but he was there. I could tell, right? It's a simple thing, but that's what Stephen Chung is saying. Well, again, you know, you can't just get to rhetoric all the time. You have to stay neutral as best you can. Because once you get to court, the judges don't like rhetoric. You know, some are operators, but most aren't. You know, I mean, operatives or something, right? Well, they're carrying a rifle because that's what they use, right? And that's my point. Make sure
they're each carrying a long stick.
So the stick is less than lethal. You have
carrying a rifle. It appears quite a display of a.
You have tear gas or whatever it is you're using. All right. You can put the mask on. So if you're going to do, definitely if you're going to do, even in the security, actually in everything, because if somebody charges at them, all right, I'd like for them to be able to just grab that pepper spray.
Officers, these are soldiers rather. You can see there's about maybe 25 of them standing here in quite a display of a show of force. And each of these soldiers, if Mike, you can zoom in a little bit, they're each carrying a long stick and a rifle. Each one of them is carrying a rifle. It appears to be a lethal rifle. We don't know what the status of those weapons are, but they certainly are here with their uniforms on and an incredible show of force. Armored vehicles also positioned outside of the Metropolitan Detention Center. So what the response is, again, outside the Metropolitan Detention Center. I was talking about the spray paint. You can see some of this. This entire block appears to be tagged, but take a look at these officers. These are soldiers, rather. You can see there's about maybe 25.
So yeah, get that pepper spray on them. That's your best bet as far as if they're out providing security for an operation or even at those buildings, right? I mean, I'm sure you're controlling the use of it, and I don't think, as long as you train it right, I don't think they'll use it corruptly. Well, there's a lot that you can present to the court. The fact is, you've asked them to self-deport for how long now? At least a month, if not longer. Right. So you can begin to formulate your methodology on how you've engaged in several processes. And again, tell the court, we realize that, and if you're honest with the court and present it in a way that's, again, you're playing games with the court and the court knows it. Right. Well, you're saying, you're essentially believing that you never admit wrongdoing to the court. That's BS. That guy that told him that it was done wrong was right. But what you say is, we realize that the government under Biden, which is the government, and we're part of that government, right, made mistakes. And we're stuck correcting those mistakes. And we're doing the best we can. We've asked them to self-deport. We've said we pay for the deportation. Right. Well, what I just said, you tell the court that the Biden administration over-immigrated. And we couldn't afford it then. We can't afford it now. And we don't want to, sit around with all these people that are criminals. Some are armed, they've committed serious crimes, when there's no money, and possibly no jobs. Because historically, no matter whether they're immigrants or not, crime increases when those things happen. Right. So if you trim the numbers. Well, I knew that there was an issue with lawful employment, that it was actually they could use the system to use fake ID, and that's what they're saying is going on. Right. So it's pretty much a stolen ID ring operating out of Omaha. Right. Yeah, Stephen Chung said it there. They want to guilt trip the public into believing burning cars and assaulting is a normal part of life. Right. Well, like Norma Torres, it's all coming crashing down. They were peddling lies to these people. Right. The system that they created was taking advantage of them, was setting them up for failure. Right. Right. I mean, that's where you should refocus them back on the Biden administration, telling them that, we're not the ones that told you it was okay. Come on in. We have endless reams of money. Well, they entered into a process that's not open-ended. Because they flooded the system, it became somewhat open-ended. Right. Okay, what I'm hearing inside is, when they look at the cases, some of these people should never have been granted conditional amnesty, right? Because, or at least allowed to come, because from the beginning you can tell that it's not going to go anywhere, that there's no case. So some of the ICE people speaking out inside, or DHS, or whoever they are saying that, again, the Biden administration set them up. They never should have been granted entrance. Which, when they're granted entrance, then other people start coming to be granted that same entrance. So you get this never-ending stream of people that at some day somebody's going to have to be an adult and say, look, you didn't make it. Correct, Larry. Thank you, Larry. So apparently some of these applications for amnesty are just a joke. They were rubber stamped. Right. So it's not all, they're saying that's not all of it, but that's part of it. Some of the applications for amnesty are just, what the hell is that? Why is this person here kind of deal? God bless you, Larry. I'm simpering. Right. Right. It's a conditional entrance into the United States. Agreed, sir. It's not, well, if you do what you're supposed to, you get to stay. It's not like even a work visa. A work visa can be somewhat permanent, but it's not even a work visa. And they're complaining because they're saying they did what they were supposed to. Well, somebody in the Biden administration lied to you because they should have told you any day you could have been deported. Correct. Well, it's a form of a setup. You're not telling the people the truth. You allow them to come in. Right. Thank you, Larry. Well, my modification would be that we'd screen people a little better, and maybe, find people, find the people that, again, if you're using fake ID, then there's nothing they can do for you, right? So again, we had people at the Omaha plant that were maybe living their life, but they're living somebody else's life in reality, right? So, oh God, thank you, Larry. But if you're, in my opinion, if somebody's using their identity and they're going to work and, they're not doing anything questionable, and, maybe you should put them on a list to be conditionally here a little bit longer, right? And move on to well, because at a certain point, you might end up with worse people staying here that you have to hunt later on, right? You're going to run out of time too, and the Democrats might take over if we don't fix the economy. Correct. Apparently, Latinas for Trump, the woman believed there would be something different going on. I don't know. I guess maybe she figured, there was a backroom deal, right, where she could just define who stays and doesn't stay, or something like that. I don't know. Right. Well, it's sad. It's sad that all that money was squandered into that system where it could have been used to build up foreign nations. Again, the last 5 years, I haven't been as active as I was before. I explained the entire system to you and how to do it. And apparently you want to do your own thing both sides of the aisle. Agreed, Larry. They blocked me from the gym. I'm trying to get together to get to the gym in a bit. So their block right now is on the gym, so all of a sudden I started wiring back into LDS. Then if I go, when I'm more active with the church, they'll move the block over there. I mean, a lot of these people are cops using false fabricated cases to monitor, right? And then they're, of course, also feeding information to criminal entities and are part of a criminal entity in themselves. Now, these are do-nothing scumbag cops and agents. That's who came after me. People working for crooks. People on the take. If your entire police department's on the take, it doesn't mean you're not on the take because everybody's doing it. Sometimes you got to be on the take just to keep your job. What do I suggest? Move on. That's why narcotics continue to flood our country. You got these dirty cops, these dirty PIs. So what happens is they're working for narcotics distributors and sex traffickers, so they take over the investigation and say who gets investigated. And again, there's a spycraft side of it, a sexualization side of it. Denying the person heterosexual relationships, denying the person religious entry into religious institutions without being molested by a criminal horde of weirdos in reality. Every last one of them's like an orgy person somewhere in their life, I guarantee it. Or at least they slept with their bosses. It's a sex cult. That's how they get that connection to one another. You let somebody settle down and marry somebody, then they'll settle down and marry somebody. So don't play it the reverse. Thank you, Larry. Trying to find my fanny pack here. I'm having to break through a bunch of blocks right now. Thank you, Larry. What the hell happened to all my cards? Just wanted me to sign off right now. So they'll sit there and will me to sign off, and then sit back, ha ha ha, if I sign off when they will it. Then they start using that same will to sexualize. I have to get to the gyms, and I'm being blocked from it because I'm investigating something, right? Well, they don't have absolute. They know how the system works. They don't have absolute communication with each cell. They just put them in at a certain point, and then they watch that person, and they might do some things that the other people know they don't want them to do because it's could be investigatable or even discovery, simple discovery of what they're doing, right? Like the sexualization. Something's not right here. This kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. 30 years of crooks. Or actually more at this point. More than 30 years of crooks. I'll be back online, believe me. Anytime I go back offline, I'll be back online, probably within a half hour. Right. Not here to play games. You have to realize, in a lot of the sex cases, criminal sex cases against these immigrants and undocumented immigrants, the victim is an immigrant, right? That's a lot of times that's hushed up. Correct. Correct. I agree there. Still a little weaker than I normally would be, but I'm starting to feel much better. What did you figure out there?
Illegal aliens are murderers. Secretary Noem is revamping the ICE tip line, and we need your eyes and ears. See something? Say something. Call 866-DHS-2-ICE. In a 2-week operation, ICE Houston deported 142 criminal aliens convicted of heinous crimes. These felons had illegally entered the United States a combined 480 times, and together have been convicted of 473 criminal offenses. Now they're gone, and they're not coming back. This week, The Washington Post authored a piece titled "The Mysterious Drop in Fentanyl Seizures on the U.S.-Mexico Border." From March 2024 to March 2025, fentanyl traffic fell by 54%. On day one, President Trump closed the border to traffickers, and the world has heard our message loud and clear. President Trump and Secretary Noem are direct.
Now, was anybody paid off? Right. So there's two sides to that. One, did they figure a workaround? Right. And then also, I believe people are sent to their arrest, and then there's another shipment that moves in a different area. Right. So there's a psychological warfare aspect to all of it. So they might be trying to make you believe that, you were doing something well and you weren't. So, but why would there be a change? Well, because people are a little more, in other words, they're selling out their own people at times and just sending, somebody to get they don't want to get rid of somebody, or even just get somebody off the street to do it, or a dirty cop or whatever it is in Mexico. So, next, Larry. So now the people are more leery about taking jobs to cross the border. Right? Not as easy to dupe them. Where did the lid of that thing go? Certain curses are increasing. Right. So as I highlighted, it also includes breaking and entering. Right. Law enforcement entities on the take, right? They won't investigate breaking and entering and things like that. Okay, where am I here? Get this here. Ask a question. Trying to figure something out here. See how many ounces this thing is. Why am I still online? Because you want me offline. How about that? Thanks, Lee. Who are you? You're a crook, not a devil. What else do you want to know? Yeah, I don't know if I'm paying more for my Amazon membership, but I'm noticing that they're shipping, like, it used to be you have to get like 25, and you still have some at $25 or $35 worth of stuff. So there's a little bit more freedom for same-day shipping. So again, I don't necessarily fault Amazon for some of what's going on, because I think it's a good deal, right? But you know, gain here, lose there, you know, that kind of thing. Correct. But if somebody's messing with my orders, that should be known. Right. Thank you, Larry. No, what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to, for now, to just regular broadcasting on the lavalier. Hopefully it sounds well enough. Thank you, Larry. Just not interested in trying to set everything up. Right. And what I might do is I might actually record. Instead of broadcast and probably get a better quality, I could edit a little bit. I have an app that actually real-time edits. Now I got to get out and get some sunlight and all that stuff. Right. Turn my air purifiers on. Yeah, I understand that. Obviously, other officers and people have admonished people, and it's just nobody ever enforced it. Right. Right. Apparently, even when I left government. Right. Things were said and deals were struck that they wouldn't do this and they wouldn't be arrested, but they never stopped. I was trying to find if my insurance paid for gym membership, because some do, right? But it doesn't. Unfortunately. Well, they offer a discount, but it's not real. Right. It's one of those discountless discounts. Agreed. All right, where's my other phone? There it is. I gotta see if this thing's plugged in and charged up. Looks like it is. Yeah, I'm trying to clear the air around a few things before I go. Well, the Democrats are falling further behind because, obviously there was, I wouldn't say an absolute mandate, but there was a mandate. Part of that mandate was to get immigration under control. And of course, they don't want money handed out to immigrants like that. Right? There was no control. It was out of control. If they audited it, they can't even audit it. It's that out of control. Right. Where did my, so what's it saying? Use the iRig? Use the iRig. No, I'm having like technical difficulties here, right? So that sure thing is weird, right? Nuclear. No, I have a sure. It's just not. It doesn't have power. It's being killed. And the iRig keeps showing up. It's just the weirdest thing on earth that none of these things that can live broadcast come on a noise gate. They have the R4 from Zoom has no noise gate in it. Has tons of effects and studio effects and all these things and compressors and preamps and right, emulations is what it is, right? But they never emulated the noise gate. It makes no sense. The Shure MVI didn't have a noise gate. Right? If I were to buy an iPhone with my iRig, to work with my iRig, they have some real-time effects, but no noise gate. It makes no sense. Correct. That's the one thing you need when you're broadcasting live, right? From wherever. None of the mobile setups come with real-time noise gate. Now, the streaming service that I use has a noise gate option. Well, that's why I was hoping to use my Surface Pro. Right? It ended up being too big for me to walk around with. I thought maybe I could walk around with it and do it when I was walking and broadcasting. Right. Agree theory. But now that I have a use for it, the touch on 1/3 of the screen doesn't work, and it's $600 to fix. Well, because I can use OBS and I can use the noise gate I'm using here. Now I am broadcasting through that service that has the noise gate, so it might actually be engaged there also. I don't know. me see, what's the volume here? What's it sound like? Let's see. Let me see, what's the volume here? What's it sound like? Let's see. That sounds pretty good. All right. All right, that's probably it for now. I'm trying to find my Shure MVI. Well, the problem with the Shure MVI, I think it's only 16-bit. All right, oh, here it is. All right. And the iRig is 24-bit. Look at this one. This one sits more square. I have no idea what that is. Why I found the capsule and it won't sit square. No, you have to understand, they're sitting in these fusion centers and these other places stalking U.S. citizens, trying to figure out how to destroy the U.S. citizen. I mean, they're sick. 100%. Or they have contacts, you know, in other places, but also some fusion centers are involved. All right, so, whoa, there they go again, with their minds. So that definitely hit a nerve. Something went to rip out my microphone cord. Tried to figure out how I could get this thing to square in, but well, I guess there's no hope for that. But oh wait, isn't it? I guess not. But it hits. There's like a little tang, and as long as it touches the tang, it transmits. Right? Yeah, something might be out around or something. Oh well, I'm sure it'll work like that. But I have another one anyway. Yeah, the sickos, man. The last one was a sicko. They revealed themselves a little bit in New Mexico with that fake Home Depot operation. Right. Yeah, they don't see Epstein, but they see some former deputy U.S. Marshal, criminal investigator helping with law enforcement operations. Right. Let me see. Ton Epstein's still in New Mexico. Nobody can touch him yet. That's what something said. Thanks, Lee. But you know, really in the larger picture, because again, law enforcement says things inside that they don't say out, right? And I'm usually the person that says it out. In the larger picture of that type of thing, Epstein's really not an egregious offender. Those young ladies are lucky that it went that way for them. Right. Didn't say he wasn't an offender, but he's a little fish in a much bigger pond. Right. I think it was more the fact that they wanted to use that for some sort of psychological effect, right, and control certain communities. Like if you were in the CIA and you were part of that Epstein insanity. Okay. We agree, Larry. Of course, you would, do whatever they say once that thing was opened up. So again, the whole thing with Epstein is these people may be innocent of anything, but once that psyop goes to fruition. Thank you, Larry. Then it goes to fruition, Right. That's how they get people not to investigate something or somebody. Or to investigate something or somebody when it really shouldn't be investigated. Thank you, Larry. Yeah, I'm definitely, my digestion's moving back to normal. All right, let me look one more last time before I go. All right, so the woman in this video was discharged from the Texas National Guard on June 5th, 2020. She does not speak for nor reflect the U.S. Army. There's something going on here.
The U.S. Secret Service confirmed visiting a Southside school as part of an investigation into a threat. Initially, Chicago Public Schools, or CP, Hamline Elementary School, after visiting a home,
Okay,
did not enter
what this guy's wearing is what I use.
Threat remain unclear.
I think it's the same.
Hamline principal Natasha Ortega said that the school followed protocols denying entry to the agents and implementing a soft lockdown.
Actually, mine's
We will
better.
not open our doors for ICE, she stated. CPS assures families that the community organizations responded to support the school.
Oh, so who's that? Is that the guy? So he's turning him, LA Scanner on X has deactivated his account and says he is turning himself in if he violated the law after doxing ICE agents. Right. It's the Omaha raid. Yeah, what I don't understand is why didn't they try to get some sort of pathway to at least, a green card or something? That's why that's what they mean the E-Verify system's broken, because people can use fake IDs. They're trying to make it two separate issues. Well, he said I used E-Verify, and so the E-Verify system's broken. Well, E-Verify system's broken because it recognized the identity, and maybe should have been able to figure out that they weren't real identities. Correct, Larry. Thanks, Larry. All right, I'm just scanning the news. All right. No, don't see much. So, no, I have to scan this make sure it's real. But I think when I drink this tea, I sleep better. So I have to. Yeah, well, there's a lot of sad stories, but again, how did this happen? We can't sustain what's going on. It's impossible. Right. Well, I think that initial DACA mentality kind of messed it up. Right. Where you get this idea where the system is going to grandfather you in and keep you here. Well, what someone stands by. From the trans standpoint, I think what I'm hearing is that they have standing for like a retirement, right? A full retirement. The Supreme Court doesn't see that they have standing to stay, based upon it being a valid psychological and medical thing, right? 100%. My point was the government keeps on again, off again-ing it. Right. And that, disrupts their life, which is what they used for the DACA people, I think. Well, the DACA people were told that they would be part of the DACA program and they would get to stay. Right. So they went and they created their lives. Now these people, they tried doing the same thing with these people that, were part of that amnesty application. And I don't think they're part of that or fit into that. Right? I know they don't fit into that. Boy, I got to break through this thing and get out of here. They're willing me down. Willing me to get off the air and stay in here instead of, going to the gym or something like that. Right? So I get money for it. Every day they break my regimen of staying healthy, they get paid by a criminal boss. Or somewhere along the way they'll be paid by a criminal boss. And these are active duty cops, a lot of them. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.